I wonder how much of it from the liberal progressive side comes from this very softly, gentle approach to discipline and parenting. Because, I hesitate dropping into bro psychology this early in a podcast, but okay, like if you think about your level of discomfort exposure, what you're comfortable being uncomfortable with, how often has someone told you no? How often have you been told that you're in the wrong? How often has someone raised their voice at you? How often has someone been stern? All of these opportunities are times where you learn, okay, I can self-regulate. This can happen to me, and I'm still safe. This can happen to me, and I'm still loved. No one's going to abandon me. This isn't a comment on my moral character or my worth as a human. This is an inbuilt part of being a fallible, flawed human that makes errors. And mum and dad are going to say, you don't hit your sister. You don't do that. You're on timeout. Go sit on the step and sit on the step until you've calmed yourself down. And if you've never experienced that and you continue, you don't need to know anything about human psychology to know that if you train a system on a type of stimulus, it will become hypersensitized when you get outside the bounds of that stimulus. Yeah, and that's where we are. Right.
No, I think that's perfect. I can just add a little psychological color to it in two ways. One is to bring in the concept of antifragility, which I hope many of your listeners are already familiar with. Some things are fragile. A glass is fragile. You don't let kids play with it. It'll break. So we give them plastic, which is resilient. If a kid drops it, it won't break, but it doesn't get better. But some things are anti-fragile. They need to be stressed and strained and dropped and suffer setbacks in order to get strong. And this comes from my NYU colleague Nassim Taleb. So bones and muscle are anti-fragile. If you raised your kids by saying, I never want you to put stress on your bones, never go downstairs, take the elevator, their bones are going to get weak. Same thing with muscle. The immune system is anti-fragile and kids are anti-fragile. So that's like the psychology underneath a lot of what you were just saying. But then there's another one, which I haven't really talked about publicly because it sort of can easily get taken out of context. Maybe that'll happen here when
Never. We have the most unreasonably reasonable audience on the internet. You'll be fine.
Okay. It's really important for kids to learn how to accept injustice. Now, let me quickly keep talking so that doesn't just get taken out of context. John Haidt, white guy says that people need to just suck it up and accept injustice. No, but the situation that you just talked about, no, you do not hit your sister, time out. And it might be the case that your sister hit you first. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's more to the story. And so maybe your parents are actually treating you unfairly. And in general, we would say, authoritative parents would always hear them out. Like, why did you hit your sister? Tell me why. If you can't justify it, we'll punish you. But sometimes things are unfair. And if you're a child who is raised where, in general, your parents, you trust them. In general, they're fair. But sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just not. And you just learn, like, okay, it happens. I'm a little mad and I'll get over it. Okay, now fast forward 15, 20 years. Imagine you're an employer hiring two recent college grads. One of them has never had to face injustice. One of them, everything was always fair. And if they thought it wasn't fair, they could say, I think that's unfair. And then they could work it out. Another kid had authoritative parents who sometimes made mistakes and sometimes was treated unfairly. Who would you rather hire? And I think what we're seeing in universities is that there's a certain kind of activist young person who sees flaws in the world and thinks that they see everything as it is, and they should never have to accept any unfairness. And they can just become very, very difficult to work with because they're used to getting their way. So yeah, we're doing kids no favors with this sort of, gentle, you shouldn't have to do anything that doesn't make you comfortable. Like, no, sometimes in life you do have to do things that make you uncomfortable or that you think you have to respond to situations that you think are unfair.
I spent a lot of time running a big events company in the UK. So I ran nightclubs for a decade and a half. And one of the things that I very quickly realized stepping into that industry is it's full of scumbags. I was trained in the art of scumbaggery. But, if I'd gone into that, I had this really interesting experience because I was at university, right? So I was doing 2 business degrees, did a master's and a bachelor's in business stuff. But I was running a business. And from doing nightlife, you get to see HR, marketing, B2B, B2C, hiring, firing, you see the full works, right? It's a full gamut of everything. So I was getting to learn about business 101, but I was also experiencing business. And what I was being taught and what I was experiencing were diverging very quickly. But the interesting point here is, up until you leave university, most people can campaign their way out of situations that they don't want to be in. This is wrong. The standards that this professor is holding me to are too high. You know, we've seen this happen a good bunch, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? When you enter the world of business, someone doesn't need to play by your rules. They can bring you up to the brink of signing a contract. You're balls deep in lawyer fees. Everything's ready to go. You bet the business on it, and they can go, by the way, it's called crank on confirmation is the actual tactic. And they just crank the fuck out of you, and they go, "Hey, yeah, we're going to pay 20% less, or this deal's dead in the water." And you go, "No, you can't do
it's
it
like
because
blackmail.
and they, yeah, we know that you're this deep in it, which is why we want to pay 20% less." Like, that's just the way that business works. Like, this is what crank on confirmation is, and it happens in nightlife over and over and over and over again. My point being, if you're unable to deal with someone coming and twisting you, or you going, "All right, well, I know that you need me. Let's play a game of chicken here with who needs who the most," you're just going to be so dysregulated that you can't deal with anything. My point being, this sort of I think of it like an Overton window of sensitivity. You know, you have the entire gamut of human experience, and then you have this range within which you're familiar. The tighter that you make that, any small movement outside of that is going to feel like dysregulation. And I suppose as well, this gets into something I've spoken about with Dr. Anna Machin and tons of people to do with child rearing, the importance of risky play and why that's so important.
Yes, that is such a key word. And that this is something I think that won't be as familiar to listeners. Even listeners who might have read The Coddling the American Mind or might know about the importance of play. There's really interesting research. There's a play researcher from Norway named Ellen Sandseter. And she has a couple of papers from 2010 and more recently on the need for risk, specifically risk and thrill. And the key word that I really resonate with is thrill. So, we know that even if kids need to play, but we don't want them to play in any place dangerous. We don't want them to climb any trees. As far as I can tell, New Zealand is the only English-speaking country left in the world where children are allowed to climb trees. Like I remember, at recess when I was a kid, if there's a tree, sometimes we'd climb a tree. But we sort of decided we have to keep kids safe from danger, so nothing that could have any real danger. But what Sandseter points out is, why are kids seeking out danger? Why is this almost a universal feature? Why are kids doing things that they're almost certainly going to make them get hurt? Why are boys doing jumps on their bicycle? They know they're going to get hurt. Why are kids skateboarding down steep hills? They know they're going to fall at some point. And the reason, she says, is because part of our evolutionary programming is to test our abilities, learn to manage risks that are small risks, because life is full of risk. Once you're not protected by your parents, boy, is life dangerous out in the jungle, out in the wild, out in the world of nightclubs. So we have to, part of our mandate as a child is try things that are a little bit dangerous. And you get to select how dangerous it is. And so, when I would take my kids to Coney Island here in New York City, big, amusement park area, the kids, like in the car, there would be so much discussion of like, are you going to do the Thunderbolt today or the slingshot? Like, oh no, that's too scary for me. Everyone, they're all trying to adjust, but then once they do it, they come off. I mean, they are jumping. They are exhilarated. The thrill is what they've been craving. And what Sandseter says is it's that process of being afraid, being really afraid, like the roller coaster, it's about to go over the top and it's about, like, you're really afraid. And then on the way down, you're screaming and it's thrilling and pleasurable and fearful. And then when you get to the bottom and you make it off the other end, it's just thrilling. And when you do that, you're actually changing your brain. You do that over and over again, and you develop the brain of a person who can face down some scumbag or some person threatening them, who can actually deal with threats and stand their ground and think quickly and not just panic and melt down. So our kids need risk and thrill. That means they're going to get hurt. They're going to sometimes break bones. But the alternative is to keep them soft so that they're going to break their minds.
This episode is brought to you by Element. Stop having coffee first thing in the morning. Your adenosine system that caffeine acts on isn't even active for the first 90 minutes of the day, but your adrenal system is, and salt acts on your adrenal system. Element contains a science-backed electrolyte ratio of sodium, potassium, and magnesium with no sugar, no gluten, no coloring, no artificial ingredients, or any other BS. It plays a critical role in reducing muscle cramps and fatigue while optimizing brain health, regulating appetite, and curbing cravings. The orange flavor in a cold glass of water is literally the best way to start your morning. I've done it every single day for over 3 years now, way before they were a partner on the show, and I love it. Best of all, there is a no BS, no questions asked refund policy, so you can buy absolutely risk-free, and if you do not like it for any reason, they will give you your money back, and you don't even need to return the box. Right now, you can get a free sample pack of all 8 flavors with your first box by going to the link in the description below or heading to drinklmnt.com/modernwisdom. That's drinklmnt.com/modern wisdom. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, you will love the full-length podcast in all its glory, which is available right here. Go on. Press it.